Hey everybody, it's Charlie from DM Moto, and if you want to go down to your nearest Kawasaki or Honda dealership and get yourself a fully street legal motorcycle that you can ride in just about every sort of environment, these are your two main options. On the left we have Honda's XR150L. This bike has been incredibly popular throughout many communities all around the globe for its virtually indestructible sub 150cc engine, its 5-speed transmission. It is carbureted, but it still gives us a good amount of ground clearance and a remarkably low $4,000-ish after destination price tag. And then over here from Kawasaki, we have the KLX230. Now, admittedly, you're seeing this one built out a little bit more in the new for 2026 Sherpa model. So this one gives you a little bit of extras, the super cool paint, some handguards, a few other accessories. We'll talk about those a little bit more on the road. So this one you're pushing about $6,000 as you're seeing it getting out of the dealership, but you can still get the more basic 230 that gives you the same 233cc air-cooled, fuel-injected single-cylinder engine, a little bit of extra power, some simpler wheels on the more base model. The Sherpa giving us a little bit of dirtage. So in order to test these two entry-level dual sport motorcycles, we are going to ride them in both environments. We are starting here at the lowest point of Orange County, and really technically the lowest point of the United States, sea level. That is the Pacific Ocean. We are here in Corona del Mar, Newport Beach, California, and we are going to ride that way to the tallest point in Orange County at the top of Saddleback Mountain. So it should be a perfect opportunity to experience what these two bikes are like in the city, in the traffic, kind of lower speed, putzing around, having a great time on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and then taking them into a little bit of dirt, playing around and having fun that way. And in order to get more of an impression on the dirt, I have my buddy Andrew, which you can tell by his very fully fitted out Fox outfit that he is a dirt bike enthusiast. What is your main dirt bike that you've got?
I ride a Husqvarna TE250i, two-stroke.
Okay. All right, so he is a two-stroke dirt biker through and through. He is much more experienced on the dirt than I am. Plenty of single track, plenty of desert. He's been riding for a long time. And these are going to be the slowest and most mundane bikes he has ridden in many years. So it'll be great to get his impression on what it's like to ride these two motorcycles here in both street conditions and then once we get them off-road. So the beach is filling up quite quickly. Like I said, it is a beautiful Sunday, so it is high time for us to hop a leg over and get on the road. So Andrew, you are going to start on the XR, and he has not ridden the XR yet. And for those of you who are not familiar, this is not a fast motorcycle. It will do up to roughly 60-65 miles per hour or so with an average sized rider, but it's going to take its time doing it. So have fun.
Thank you. Ooh, nice cushy seat, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And both low seat heights on these bikes. We're dealing with about 32 inches or so before the suspension compresses. These are both very accessibly sized dirt bike street legal machines. Fuel injection, so I just popped this one right on. Andrew's going to fire up. And we are good to roll. And already I'm feeling the extra bite from this 233cc single. Yeah, you're right, Andrew. The seat is a lot squishier on that bike.
Yeah, I'm riding a couch. The cockpit's way closer to you on this bike too.
Yeah, that is overall kind of an oddly proportioned motorcycle because in some respects it's quite a bit smaller than your average bike, but you actually have more ground clearance and more front suspension travel than I do. So it's kind of a strange beast. That one, I believe, has 19-inch front, 17-inch rear. This bike is more proper 21-inch front, 18-inch rear. A little bit more what you're used to for riding off-road. And let's talk a little bit about Kawasaki's strategy here with the 230. It's kind of interesting that the KLX230 makes more power and is a little bit more sought after, I will say. But Kawasaki actually puts a little bit more effort, seemingly, into their 230 lineup. You can get ABS on the 230 model, whereas you cannot with the 300. And now, like I said, for 2026, we have these two new models. We have this Sherpa, which is designed a little bit for kind of higher speed off-road riding, I would say. And then the DS, which is a little bit more for overlanding maybe on a bike. You've got a rack that's built in and kind of the darker brown color, and just a little bit more for maybe if you're going to throw it on a camper and go ride. Now, by all means, you can do that with any KLX230, but they've sort of put out these special editions that curate the bikes a little bit more to what you might be using them for. Whereas the KLX300, you essentially have the bike. You have the KLX300, you got the Supermoto, and that is it. And for anything other than top-end power, the 230 actually does it just as well as the 300. I've been really surprised riding both bikes. Looking around the bike itself, we have a fairly straightforward gauge cluster. We have digital speed. We've got a clock, which is admittedly nice to have. Whoops. And we have a horn that is very sensitive. Trip, odo, and that is about it. And the ability to hook the bike up via Bluetooth to your phone and kind of keep track of maintenance and other basic bike specs. And a peppy little engine. This is virtually the same engine that you get on the dirt bike version of the KLX230. Obviously a little bit more plugged up for emissions, but it's grunty. And as you'll see once we get to a little bit higher speed sections, fairly capable of running US highway speeds. Now, because we've got the 150, we're not going to be spending any extended time on the highway, but they can both do it. This one could just do it a lot better. I do think we could stand to bump the preload up a little bit on the back of that suspension, just to kind of give a little bit less squish. But yeah, all things considered, you can see Andrew's about, what, 5'11" or so?
I'm about 5'8" with a short
Really?
inseam. So
okay.
It's unlike me to be able to touch both toes on the ground. I gotta say, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, that's the big thing with these smaller dual sport motorcycles, is if you're newer to riding, whether it's riding any sort of motorcycle or riding off-road, you're really going to appreciate that confidence of being able to firmly put your feet down and manhandle the bike, go slower, kind of walk it up hills. These both have very low, or I guess very high first gears, depending on how you look at it. Very tall first gear would be the best way to put it. So you'll see when we're off-road, we're going to be able to kind of feather the clutch and just really do some easy slow speed maneuvering. We are going to be riding today. We're going to head out here on the Pacific Coast Highway, which we are just waiting to turn right onto, and take that down a little bit, head up through the county, climb an elevation before we get to some twisties in the canyons, and then ultimately to the dirt. 6-speed transmission here for the KLX. We're dealing with a 5-speed on the XR150. Both honestly are really well spaced out though. I've spent significant amounts of time on both motorcycles. I really never feel like either of them are out of sorts or needing certain amounts of power here or there. Now, because the Sherpa version of the KLX230 comes with more of an aggressive street legal tire, you do hear the tire whirring a little bit at these higher speeds. So if you're somebody who does plan on doing more 55-mile-an-hour roads, 70-mile-per-hour roads on your dual sport, just keep in mind that you do, I'd say you hear it more than you feel it. Mostly because the main thing you feel is that little single-cylinder engine jumping up and down underneath your butt. But you hear it. However, I do suspect that we are both going to appreciate the extra grip of these tires once we get this in the dirt.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the 150cc engine and the street tires do once we hit something a little more slick.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's smooth on the street here.
And of course, if you live in an area where it is legal to do so, these motorcycles are great for lane filtering, partially because with their low seat height, if you need to kind of walk it through, very easy to do so. Gotta be careful a little bit of your mirrors, but neither of them are huge wide handlebars like we had on the XR650. And then you can get right out in front of traffic. Both air-cooled, both very simple, straightforward engines. Theoretically, you could ride these for many, many thousands of miles and have minimal maintenance, minimal issues, and the beauty of them compared to buying something like a Hawk 250 off of Amazon or something like that from China is that you can take either of these to your local dealership and have them serviced. I mean, admittedly, if you're watching this video and you are more of a veteran rider, there's pretty much any service you need to do on either of these two bikes, I'm sure you could do on your own. But if we're talking about younger, more inexperienced riders, anything like that, you might not want to do a valve adjustment on your own, or heck, maybe you don't even want to do an oil change for your first time. Whatever the reason, some people are really going to appreciate the fact that Honda and Kawasaki dealerships are some of the most common, and that's where you can take both of these bikes. Beautiful day here on Pacific Coast Highway. We see a remarkably high surf coming in. If any of you have seen any of the clips on Instagram recently of high surf, these are the days. Doesn't seem to be as bad as it was, though. Speaking of as bad as it was, Andrew's going to need to negotiate this uphill climb with the XR150. I'm sure he's got it pinned.
Yeah, let me get into a tuck position for this. That's holding okay. I'm pinned, but I'm in, you know, low 50s.
And as we come into Laguna Beach here, it's a great opportunity to talk about the noise. Both of these are very quiet, four-stroke, well street piped engines and motorcycles. I kind of like that. I like being able to ride these sort of bikes through the city and not feel like I'm just an annoying thumper, if you will, singing the song of my people with a single cylinder engine. These are very refined, quiet bikes. And you might want to be using one of them for campground duty. You might want to throw it on the back of a truck, back of an RV or something like that with these lighter weights. So to be able to kind of just hop on and putz down to the camp store or something like that, not feel like you're waking everybody up as you ride through, to some people that's invaluable. And that is one of the beauties of a dual sport. Is today we're kind of trying to show you all of the different scenarios in which you might be riding one of these bikes. But for a lot of people, and myself included, there are many dirt roads, fire roads, trails throughout our area of Southern California here that you need to have a license plate for. So to be able to simply ride these bikes and not have to worry about doing some sort of weird registration with the DMV or riding illegally or anything like that, to be able to just get them from the dealership, head down to the DMV, throw some plates on, already have your mirrors, your lights, your horn, everything like that. I mean, that's huge. And yeah, you might want to put on a little bit more aggressive tire or something like that, but in general, these bikes are pretty darn capable these days.
This shifter is interesting. It rolls.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's kind of nice. That one was I'd probably adjust it if I were to really tweak it a little bit higher. It seemed a little low.
With your dirt boots, yeah.
Yeah. And these pegs, the rubber pegs, everything's cushy on this bike, you know? The seat, the shifter, the pegs. It's a pretty comfy machine.
Another nice aspect of running dual sports is they come with foot pegs for passengers in the back and little accommodations. So again, if you're thinking, okay, maybe this is your only bike in the garage and you don't ride very regularly, but every now and then you want to be able to putz around and throw somebody on the back, run down the street or something. Or again, something I love so much for these bikes is if I take it camping, if I take it on the back of my camper sort of thing. What if I want to run down to the gas station with my kid, or what if I want to go out with my wife and just run down a trail or something? No, nobody's expecting you to be running MX tracks with a passenger on the back, but it adds so much usability when you just need to get your friend who ran out of gas or something, throw them on the back of the bike. Again, the usability of these two machines at such an accessible price point is their biggest appeal. That is where we are heading, folks. The top of that mountain right there, tallest point in Orange County, California. So far, so good, running around on little bikes here. We are gonna swing into a gas station, throw a little 87 octane in here. Neither bike has a particularly large tank. However, the XR is bigger, 2.8 gallons as opposed to just a paltry 2 gallons here on this motorcycle. However, this bike, a little bit more fuel efficient. So real world range, you're probably going to be looking about 130 160 miles or so on each of them, depending on how you ride. However, being fuel injected, we do have, as we sneak through here, we do have a fuel gauge on the KLX, whereas the XR being carbureted, you have a petcock. So if we were to run out, we'd simply switch it over to reserve and find our way to fuel. But that is a big part. If you do plan on riding regularly, it's very nice to be able to just hop on your KLX, start it up, maybe you haven't ridden it in a few weeks or something, and then see what you got. Keep going. And that is another aspect. Again, if you are using these bikes maybe as spare motorcycle, as a travel motorcycle, something like that, being fuel injected, you're going to have less of an issue with ethanol fuel. Now, with the carburetor, ethanol fuel, if it sits in there for a few months, it's going to start to gum up your carb. If it sits too long, it's going to make it not run right, and you might have to clean that thing out, rebuild it, something worse. Fuel injection, you got the fuel injector in there, it's going to clean everything out. Ethanol fuel, not as big of a deal. So again, if you're riding regularly, no big deal. If you have regular access to ethanol-free fuel, no big deal. However, if you're going to keep these things in the garage for a while and then maybe throw them on your RV and head out after a few months or something or anything like that, you might appreciate having fuel injection. Donald Trump is a low IQ person. We should ask what their opinion is on carbureted versus fuel-injected bikes. I'd be curious to know. Both bikes have locking fuel caps. However, the XR's pops off. It doesn't flip, so that can be a little bit inconvenient. This one, you're very standard, just undo and go type. A whole whopping 0.84 gallons to top both bikes off. So we didn't need much, but it's always good practice before you're heading off trail to just get a little fuel in there. All right, and since, like I said, we don't have any sort of gauge, reset the little trip meter here on the XR. Andrew was right, getting on the XR right here just feels so squishy. Squishy seat, squishy shocks, very comfortable. Oh, and a very gentle clutch let out too. I would say the Kawasaki, everything feels a little tighter on there, for better or for worse.
That's interesting going back to back on that. You know, you definitely feel the extra power again on here now. I was mistaken. The delivery is different though.
And the gearing is helpful on this bike for sure. It's a tiny bit lighter too. We're dealing with about just over 280 pounds on the XR and about 300 pounds on the Kawasaki, especially the 50 state friendly version that we have here. But yeah, everything, the cockpit, the rider triangle, everything just a little bit more compact on this XR. Well, like I said, and some of the dimensions are actually larger than the KLX, like suspension travel in the front and ground clearance. So it'll be interesting to see how they are when we're in the dirt. The seats are a little bit different as well. The XR has, they're both one-piece seats. The XR has a hump separating the passenger from the driver, whereas the CRF, or the the KLX has a little handle that the passenger can hold on to.
Yeah, it reminds me of a jet ski strap. Kind of the back of one of those seats.
Yep. Now, I like to ride fairly far back on the seat. I like to kind of have my arms outstretched. And with the XR, I kind of feel myself starting to nudge up against the hump. And on the KLX, I'm often on the strap. So you just kind of get used to that. But I'm not a huge person either. I'm 5'10", 165 pounds, and 32-inch inseam. And I mean, fortunately for me, pretty much everything is designed for people about my size. But these bikes, you do kind of feel, all right, you know, I'm definitely comfortable on here. Nice way to put it. Less power and fewer forward speeds here on the XR, which means when you're getting about 50 miles per hour or so, if you're going uphill, you're gonna kind of start to run into a little bit of loss of power. So you just kind of gotta really strategize. All right, am I running on the top of 4th gear, or am I going up to 5th? And then if I'm in 5th, do I have enough power to accelerate? Both bikes run in single disc brake setups for the front and rear. However, again, a big thing for me is that on the KLX you can get ABS, and you can turn the ABS off once we get onto the dirt here. But I am somebody who, if I'm especially having a less experienced rider riding on the street, I want ABS. It's a good thing to have in an emergency situation, especially when you're dealing with knobbier tires that aren't going to have perfect traction. Being able to grab a fistful of brake front and rear and bring the bike more safely to a stop is a nice feature to have for really any sort of rider, but especially less experienced riders here on the street. The XR, no sort of rider aids whatsoever. You're left to your own devices. You ever ridden a bike with ABS before, Andrew?
Never have. Just the thought of it kind of weirds me out. I've taken plenty diggers by grabbing way too much front brake in the dirt and locking up that front wheel going over the bars. I'm a little tempted to, but I think I'm a little wiser than that right now to try it on the street.
Yeah, when we're on more of a rural area, I'll let you give it a try. You can literally just grab the brake as hard as you can, and the bike just comfortably takes itself right to a stop. It's really remarkable. Wow. Both bikes, you better get used to counting your gears, because no sort of gear indicator. So right there, I knew I was in 5th. Just count down 4, 3, 2, 1. Fortunately, they do both have neutral indicators, so you can see as you pass neutral, coming from one to the other. Let's give it a little full tilt here. See how far Andrew runs out in front of me. Woo!
There's 6th gear now. Letting off.
Look out! That 2118 setup does look cool from like riding next to you here, seeing it ridden. I mean, it's weird to see such big tires on such a little bike. While neither of these bikes are exactly speed demons, you're still going to want to be able to send them around some twisty corners if you're on the street. So let's do exactly that here. Like I said, the XR has smaller wheels and tires, and also slightly more street-friendly tires. But both of these bikes should be more than capable of getting down pretty low thanks to their high peg height. You do got to be a little bit careful on this stretch of road just because of kicked up debris. Woo! Big, soft, squishy suspensions, but we do have a lot of travel, so able to absorb these bumps in the road pretty well. And of course, our goal today is to keep the shiny side up through our entire ride. But one of the other nice things about having a dual sport motorcycle like this, especially if it's one of your first motorcycles, is that if you have a down, then parts are cheap and breakage is typically minimal. You might scuff up a mirror or a handlebar end, but in general, these are going to be very easy motorcycles to mend if you put them down, because at the end of the day, when you're in the dirt, you're almost intended to drop them. So same extends a little bit to the street. It's going to be a lot less costly to fix it up compared to something like a Ninja.
Yeah, there's a lot of aftermarket, I'm sure, accessories that you can put on for protective bits and aftermarket replacement parts that are not OEM but are just as good, if not better.
That's a great point too. Yeah, if you want to go with different style mirrors, different sort of clutch levers and everything, make it colorful, or you could do a cage and have it fully protected if you want to stunt on them a little bit more. So many different things you can do, and yeah, again, they're so affordable for these type of bikes. And if you didn't drop 5 figures at the dealership to purchase it, then you have more money to spend customizing them as well. Now the XR is very 1990s Miata in having to carry your speed. So you're not really getting much shove when you come out of a corner with the accelerator. The KLX, with just a little bit of extra displacement there, allows you to kind of throttle off, get through the corner and come on, and yeah, you're not exactly picking up the front end. However, it does allow a little bit more excitement there. And speaking of that excitement, I'm going to swap back with Andrew to give him a little taste of 150 cc's around these corners.
Oh yeah, that's a welcome home on the seat.
Yeah, you're right. This is a hard seat on the KLX. Very firm and kind of wide too. It's like a plank.
Yeah, you feel the sharp edges on it, huh?
Yeah. This thing feels like a rocket ship.
This bike feels a bit more like a toy.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's all just tighter. Probably be great for a woman too. Someone with a little smaller frame.
Yeah.
Everything's a little bit closer. Nice.
Yeah.
But not bad for myself as a 5'8" male.
Well, and that kind of raises an interesting observation, is this KLX230 has always been in such a weird spot, because you've got more full big bike ergonomics. I mean, it's not huge, but it's bigger. You know, the handlebars are a little wider, the seats, everything's stretched out a little more. And you've got full big bike wheels and tires, but then you've got such a low amount of power that a lot of people just look this bike over. I mean, you can go to a dealership and pick up one of these leftover or used for sometimes $3,000 or $4,000. I mean, almost the same price as the new price of that XR there. And it's because people honestly just could not be bothered to buy the 230 when the 300 exists. And I do think you're missing out on a lot of motorcycle for that price, but I also kind of get it, because a lot of people are like, all right, well, if I'm riding more or less a full-size bike anyway, almost a full-size bike, why don't I just get something with more power? Whereas at least on the XR, you're dealing with a little bit of a smaller ergo and frame and everything, so you're kind of like, all right, I understand why I'm on a slow motorcycle right here, because it's tiny. That is one of the kind of cool things though with the XR, is when you're on that, you feel like you have nothing to prove to anybody. Like, it's just so carefree that, like, it could not be bothered.
You got nothing to prove, and because of that, it's a little more freeing, a little more just kind of, I'm doing it for me. It's just fun, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah. Here we go, a little bit of twisty road action now on the KLX. Again, knobbier tires, but still plenty of traction. And like I said, I'm able to accelerate through the corner in a way that I just was not on the XR.
Got third gear pinned right now, I think.
And I kind of appreciate the little gutsy sound from the engine on this one. I'm getting a little bit of that growl from this 233. Brakes on both bikes, I mean, you're not getting much feel from them. They do a job at stopping the motorcycle. That's about the long and short of it. All right, we are here at the end of our street section, getting ready to throw the KLX and the XR150 into the dirt. But we just rode, let's see, this is the one with the analog. Let's see, 21 miles since we got fuel. And so probably a good 10 or 15 before that. So a good almost 40 miles or so in mixed street riding. And they're both very competent at it. Like I said, we didn't do any highway. If you are going to do highway, this one will do about 74 indicated before its limiter actually kicks in. I believe that is due to Euro 5 emissions, but it can confidently get up to 74 miles per hour with an average sized person such as myself riding the bike. The XR, I've taken on the highway, and if you're tucked behind a semi or something like that, you can get down the highway for a few exits, but it's not something you'd want to do regularly. Outside of those, as we saw riding together, I mean, one was keeping up with the other. It's not like the KLX was leaving the XR in the dust or anything like that. There was that one section of twisty road where I was pulling away a little bit, but other than that, you kind of have fun on both.
Yeah, I think, you know, the road is the limiting factor for most of the day so far, right? We're not on long straight stretches where the KLX would pull away, at least significantly. And a couple times when it did, that was all right. It caught back up when it started to get bendy again. And yeah, I think they both held their own.
Right. Now, regarding the ergos so far, you noticed and kind of observed, and we both sort of did, that the XR is squishier, but kind of more relaxing, even though it's a little bit more cramped. It's a sort of weird combination.
Yeah, I imagine if you were a larger person, you could push the bars forward. Looks like these, you could figure out something with the mounts where you could slide them forward a little bit, maybe some risers or something. But it is certainly a more cramped riding position, more suited to a novice or someone with a smaller frame. But I don't know, we're not big guys, so
right.
It works well for us.
And you were comfortable throughout the time on it,
never
which is the most
uncomfortable.
important part. Right. Now, we also noticed with the KLX, much harder seat and much more expanded ergonomics, which is kind of more comfortable in some ways and a little bit less in others. I don't know if this one has a low seat mod or something like that, but definitely wider, more plank-like. So if you were putting a few hours on there, your butt might get a little bit more uncomfortable more quickly here on the KLX.
Notice the corners on the Honda seat are a little more rounded, a little more tapered in here where your legs sit. The KLX just felt a little more square. Not uncomfortable, but just relative to the Honda, more rigid.
I do have to say, I like the looks of the Kawasaki quite a bit more. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just very generic. Whereas this one actually looks like kind of a unique bike between the color of it with the Sherpa model, the angled LED headlight, the bark busters, if you will. Probably can't call them that. The hand guards. I mean, it's kind of a cool looking motorcycle.
I agree. Yeah, the two-tone on the mask there is pretty sweet.
Yep. Yeah, does that. Has a little bit of this kind of like sticker action going on, and then the DID wheels. So, yeah. All right. Well, it is time to hit the dirt. And like I said, we've got fairly decently aggressive tires on here. What model are we running? TRC Trails GP 22Rs. You familiar with those tires at all, Andrew?
Can't say I am.
All right.
We got something nice and
Nice and
street-ready
Chinese over
aerodynamic on here. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're running, but they should hold up okay on this kind of terrain.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing, like I was saying to Andrew earlier, is just him coming off of a dedicated dirt bike. Just got to be careful of your front end in the sandier stuff, because they do like to wash out. Oh, and we do need to turn off the ABS. So hold this down, and then you see that. And now I can't remember, you guys will already know this, but I can't remember if it's all ABS or just rear ABS that gets disabled here. I think it's all, but we will find out when we're in the dirt. The reason I wanted to do this route with these bikes is it's a perfect example of the beauty of dual sports, and even more so these kind of inexpensive, carefree kind of dual sports. Started at the beach. We're out here in Southern California. It's a beautiful June Sunday. I'm just out with my buddy going for a ride. And if you're someone who maybe never really ventures off-road or never really ventures on-road, both of these bikes can take you on an adventure that is so much more than just the machines. Absolutely. If you're going to go out and do dedicated, single trail or desert or any sort of, MX, anything like that, you're going to want a bike that's more fit for that. And then same thing, if you're just going to go and carve canyons, there's no reason to have a motorcycle like this. But it's the fact that, we're out here, we've got our Cardo headsets on, we're chit-chatting about life, and then we're also experiencing our county around us here and all these different things. I mean, we got to ride along the Pacific Ocean, and now we're going to ride up to, I think this mountain gets up to about 4,500 feet or so, and kind of experience this element of our environment. And these bikes are going to be perfect at none of it, but entirely competent at all of it. And to me, that's one of the beauties of being out on two wheels, is you would have to be, I guess unless you really don't care about the well-being of your vehicle, you would have to have a fairly expensive four-wheeled car or truck or SUV or something in order to do what we're doing today. You have to be careful as you're kind of going up this section of trail and looking out for these potholes and everything like that. And then of course as you're driving along PCH, you're inside a vehicle and maybe got your windows down or something like that. And all the while you're getting 23 miles per gallon and you've got air conditioning, but you're not having the same fun and lightheartedness as you are when you're out on a machine that you only spent $4,000 or $5,000 on, and you can twist the accelerator and get that kind of adrenaline boost and then just take it easy. So all that is to say, these bikes provide something that no other machine can. No car, not even an electric machine because of the distance that we're riding today. And at the price point, very few other motorcycles even can provide. Standing up here on the Cowie, fairly decent with the sort of expanded cockpit that we talked about a little bit earlier. We've got metal pegs on the Sherpa model. I think the standard KLX gets rubber pegs. I don't know that for certain. But again, at 5'10", I'm able to just barely keep my arms fully extended. And if I wanted to stand and ride, I'd be able to do so for a decent bit of time. And here we go. The dust begins. It's something I always forget about dirt riding. It's the dust.
You have to get a couple camera lens wipes in there. Don't forget those every once in a while.
Yeah, I almost always forget that before the wrap of the video, and then everything's all sepia. Now, neither of these bikes have robust suspension, just preload adjustment on the both of them. So as we're in this rougher section, and man, this road is a lot rougher than the last time I rode it just a few months ago. Summer is taking its toll. Oh, and the KLX is taking it. Definitely not rebounding particularly quickly, but I'm already riding it harder than I think a lot of people would. How's the XR doing back there, Andrew?
We're flying!
Look at him go. He's shaking up my waters in the back carrier of that bike.
No, it's fun to be pinned going up a hill. I mean, we're not flying, but it's pretty comfy. More capable than it looks, probably. Especially when compared to a full-fledged dirt bike.
Yeah. No, push that thing to its limits, please. That's why you're here.
Definitely bottoming out the suspension, though.
At least the KLX is going to look the same with all this dust on it.
I'm going to be in this turnout here. Come take this big right turn with some gusto.
Okay. Whee. That's my gusto.
More like dusto.
And we have another truck
With the bike.
Yeah. Dude, you should be riding.
You chose wrong. You park down there and you ride up. Come on.
All right. Well, let's see, that's the thing. It's technically, this is a street legal road. You're not allowed to ride unplated. So again, benefits of having motorcycles that are dual sports.
Indeed.
So again, if you're doing trail riding like this, I mean, right in front of us is a perfect example of why you don't need a bunch of horsepower in order to do the riding. I mean, yeah, if you're going out in the desert or something like that, you're going to appreciate something with 30 plus horsepower to really pull up some of those big hills. But you know, Andrew's coming off of a Husky, and he's having no problem running away from me here on this 2-track with all of 14 horsepower. I am really appreciating the just general solid feel that we talked about earlier with the KLX of the build and the way the handlebars are and the seat. It's all making a little bit more sense to me out here on the dirt. It feels like I'm getting a lot of confidence in it.
Alrighty. Oh, back to the tough seat.
Yeah, this is so squishy.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I gotta say, I don't know if there's a more comfortable way to like a good compromise of comfort and speed going up a trail like this.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, who needs suspension when you got cushion?
It's all in the foam.
But oh man, the narrower handlebars are something to get used to from a confidence perspective, and the geometry, I'm having a much harder time standing on this bike.
Yeah.
You're right. The pegs are too far in, and I'm like awkwardly forward.
They're narrow and skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well,
then the fact that they're
I think if we took the rubber caps off, they'd be a lot more confidence inspiring. But you need looks like a 10mm wrench, something to do that. Easy to do in the garage.
Right, I was a bit surprised that they weren't kind of quick release, and we forgot to check, but there might even be a 10mm in the little toolbox at the back of this bike, but it is just, you know, for a bike that you might be riding in both environments, it's kind of unfortunate you can't just pop it out.
Yeah.
But again, we're dealing with the price point here. How's the Kawi feel?
A lot stronger. Yeah, the pegs feel a lot more stable. It's got more juice, but not, you know, not in an overwhelming kind of way. Just a little extra power I could see being helpful as you just navigate the rocky terrain.
Right.
Suspension's probably a little stiffer. Maybe quite a bit stiffer.
The Honda is almost like inviting me to ride slower. Like,
yeah.
I just kind of like, I just want to sit and sort of enjoy the seat and cruise. Whereas the Kawasaki, I was like stand in a little more excited to like, all right, I'm gonna try to go fast here.
Yeah, the wider handlebars are nice too. You get a little more control, I think. In the turns, just a little more finesse. And these aren't tight trails where you're worried about your handlebar width hitting trees or anything like that.
Right. But yeah, when the bumps aren't huge, the suspension on this is actually kind of nice.
Yeah, it just kind of floats over the rocks, and
yeah,
it's not, you know, ripping through the whoops at a crazy speed, but
right.
You know, as I kind of ride this, I don't think that if I was on like a 450 motocross bike, I'd be that much faster. It would pull away easily in the straights, but you know, as we were kind of talking about on the road, you're limited to your speed by the terrain or the roads that you're on, and it's not like it turns any faster or slower than a bike with more power.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think if you were out on some like mountain single tracks or whatever, then you'd be even more limited in your speed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it doesn't feel cumbersome. It doesn't feel. Like I've ridden bikes with more power than I can handle, and those can be overwhelming. And this doesn't feel that way, you know, unless you were first time ever. But you know, it doesn't feel like you're going to get yourself into trouble on this bike, but you're still going to have a really good time wherever you're going out, no matter what your friends are riding.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point to make, is that, like, you know, you could go and meet up with some buddies who are on plated dual sports or plated dirt bikes or something like that, and kind of still, are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Ooh. Look at him go. Let's see, can we do it in the XR?
I bet you can. Just a couple big rollers.
Oh, it's rider mod more than anything. Let's see. Oh boy. Oh.
There he comes. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Thank goodness for that low seat height, because I definitely had my legs down at one point.
Couple dabs will do, yeah.
Yeah. Woo, okay. Now this section of trail does get particularly rocky, so a little bit less fun, a little bit more preservation of our tires, but here we go. That's the other cool thing about these and these very low stress engines is, you know, Andrew and I are riding these pretty hard, kind of pushing the machines to their limits, but realistically, if you were a newer rider or just kind of more in a casual sort of ride, you could go this fast. I mean, you can go 10, 15 miles per hour. The engines are geared such that you can just really putz and take it easy. And because of those low seat heights, if you come into a situation where you're running out of momentum, you can kind of just put a nice little leg down and do whatever you need to do. These are not bikes that egg you to go faster if you don't want to. And again, Andrew hasn't been out since January, and it's June now, so he's enjoying getting to stretch his riding legs a little bit, but I'm kind of just out here, you know, it's a little break from the norm, and I'm just happy to be kind of taking in these sights and being out on two wheels, and especially now that we're getting up to this kind of sketchier, sharper rock section. I'm just sitting, taking it easy, dial back down a gear. Quick gear check for the video today. I am donned in my Revit gear. kind of more of a general ADV gear, which was fitting for a ride like today, doing a little bit of city, a little bit of dirt. Got my Ortez jeans, off-track jacket, boundless boots, and dirt gloves. So good bit of breathability for this warmer area. Uh-oh, dude, I might have a flat rear tire.
My what?
My rear tire is popped.
Oh,
Yep.
what an adventure we have.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me you're not running the mooses in the rear?
I knew the rocks would be sharp here, but I thought we would be okay. Oh. I got real squirrely. And then, done she is.
You think you just pinched it probably?
Probably.
Yeah.
Shoot. Well, we almost made it.
Well, that's what happens when you ride dirt bikes.
Yeah. That's my first puncture.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's nurse it down to that kind of the main area where we saw those other ADV bikes, and then we'll take a stop there, grab some water, and go from there.
Sounds good.
Well, sorry, Honda. This rim might not be in great shape by the time we get to the bottom. So, today's video was supposed to be riding to the highest elevation on the XR150 and the KLX230, but not the case here, the KLX, or with the XR. So, keep that in mind, doing these sharper rocks. I mean, a puncture can happen with just about any tire, but we were running factory pressures and with just a little bit more street-friendly tire that comes on this bike, you got to be a little bit more careful with that. Whereas the KLX, especially in that Sherpa version, a little bit more of a robust wheel and tire package for this type of riding. So, you vibing with the KLX though?
Yeah, I think if you wanted just to cruise around and ride some dirt, ride some street, it's a great option. I think the
riding both of them, having the tire aside, do you think it's worth spending an extra few $1,000s to step up to the Kawi, or do you think the Honda does enough for such a compelling price?
I think the Honda is it's a pretty good argument. It's a couple $1,000s, and you can make a few modifications. We both talked about standing up on the Honda, and that was certainly more challenging with the kind of rider ergonomics. And so if I could make a few adjustments, changing the foot pegs out, making sure the bars are in the right place versus the stock position, I think you could go a long way with a few dollars spent in modifications. The Kawi kind of comes ready to go. Needs less. It's got the dirt tires already, which held up today better than the more street-friendly ones than on the Honda. And so if you don't want the headache or the kind of mental load of making a few adjustments and just want to go from the dealership straight to the street and dirt, it's a great option. It doesn't, they don't feel dramatically different in weight. I think you said there was about 30 pounds between the two, or is it 50?
More like 15 to 18.
Okay. So that's
yeah,
about
I mean,
right.
they're pretty close. Yeah. For me, I as much as I do prefer and I really like the KLX, it's harder for me to recommend it at MSRP because I feel like it's in this awkward spot of most people are not going to be okay with that as their only motorcycle. Like if you're going to ride dirt and trails regularly, you're probably going to step up to something like a KTM or a Husky or Honda 450 or Yamaha 250 maybe. Like there's just so many more powerful options that have better suspension and all these sort of things that are still street legal. And yeah, you're going to be paying more for them, but it's going to be worth the money. And then here on the opposite end is like, okay, if you are going to have it as your second bike, why spend an extra few $1,000s on the Kawasaki when this Honda will do 90% of what that does comfortably, and you save 35% on the purchase price?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if you really start riding trails, this will be fine for riding them. But if you want to, hone your skills and really kind of pick up and advance, you will find yourself wanting more than this bike eventually. And so it is kind of in that awkward middle ground of of cost and performance versus something where you could get like a KTM 350, which is a street legal dirt bike basically, and,
Right.
And you're not going to get bored on that thing ever, or 500 even.
Yeah. Now, if you could pick up one of those Kawasaki's used or leftover from the dealer, and you're getting a significant discount, that's where I'm like, okay, well, then it starts to be a pretty cool option because you get it as your wife's bike, you get it as your camping bike, all these sort of things. Where if you're spending less than $5,000 out the door, it makes a lot more sense. But if you were spending $7,000 out the door for that bike as opposed to closer to $4,000 for this, a little bit harder argument in my eyes.
Yeah, for a second bike or something for putting around camp or throwing on the back of your camper and just kind of exploring a little bit, I'd probably save the dollars and get the XR. It's comfy. I think for this kind of purpose, it was super fun. And you're not kidding yourself. It's just a good, reliable machine that's gonna get you anywhere. We had a flat tire. That's what happens. You ride dirt sometimes, but overall, a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think the Honda gets at kind of what a lot of people are looking for in the motorsports world these days. It's just cheap, accessible fun. Like everything's gotten so expensive, and to think that you do have to spend $10,000 just to go out and have a good time with your buddies on trail is not the case. And I think we're seeing that with e-bikes, we're seeing that with Chinese bikes. So it's kind of cool that you can at least still go out and get yourself a street legal Japanese motorcycle, even if it's not built in Japan. It's still from a Japanese brand and it has the Honda warranty and dealer network and everything. And you do that at a much more accessible price than something like the Kawasaki that, yes, I would say is a better bike, but maybe not percentage better than the Honda is. Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew, for coming along for this slightly modified ride. I am disappointed that we didn't make it to that beautiful outlook over Orange County and the ocean and up to the highest point. We got close, that is for sure, but I guess moral of the story is get some different tires. or stuff happens, whatever kind of takeaway you want to have. But yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on either of these motorcycles, check the link below. We've got DM commuter fuel economy tests and full reviews of each. I don't know if I'm going to shoot another full review of the XR. Probably not now that it needs a tire. I think I'm going to wussy out and give it back to Honda and I don't know, continue on the 650 maybe. That one fared a little bit better off-road. Yeah. But yeah, we've got a lot on the KLX in pretty much every version as well, the dirt bike version as well, which is a great little trail bike. So big thanks to Andrew for coming along and helping us shoot, film, and ride. And if you want to know anything more, ask in the comments. We'll try to get back at you. But you can pretty much do no wrong if you get these at a pretty affordable price. You'll have a great time on them regardless. I love the Sherpa layout. We'll talk more in the full review about who should buy this bike, because I do actually quite like having it in the garage as a little runaround, as a camp bike, a lot of different reasons like that. But it is hard to argue with the price on this XR. And we will see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.